我们今天上午的最后一位讲演的嘉宾是瑞士银行集团全球执行董事马克斯米林马丁先生。Our next speaker is Mr. Maximilian Martin, Global Head, UBS Philanthropy Services.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We're technically out of time, so I'll be very brief, but I would like to add a few points. First of all, maybe we can have the presentation, please. Is that possible? Yes. Next slide. Can we get the first slide? Yes. First of all, I would like to congratulate Jet Li and the organizers for this initiative, because global philanthropy, global citizenship is at an inflection point. And it is important to articulate this global ambition, which Jet is doing. Scott pointed out that professors give exams in addition to serving the US also teach. Of course, we also do exams that have a few more questions. But one of the things that I realized when I established the first course on social entrepreneurship in Europe some years ago is how important it is to identify and support these game-changing individuals who Jet described himself as a crazy man. This is typically a proxy for being a visionary, so I would say he's a visionary, because they really help us collectively as humanity to move forward. So Jet, I would like to thank you for taking on that task. And since we are pressed for time, and since our colleagues have been so eloquent in covering the global challenges, I'd like to focus briefly on a few points about the role of philanthropy and how we can actually do it. So we'll jump over the next two slides. You've heard about the challenges, of course, sanitation, climate change, migration. Next one. You've heard about the progress on Millennium Development Goals. One point here that we might want to consider is there are currently $40 to $60 billion a year missing for us to achieve the Millennium Development Goals by 2015. Next slide. As you can see, I'm really trying to move quickly to get you to lunch. But I think here we should pause a second. Philanthropy is very powerful. It's an important resource. But as the previous speakers highlighted, it is a finite resource as well. We've done some calculations at UBS. And if you look at the data that is available and also the data that is not available, you need to estimate and weigh the average. Global giving in cash is currently probably about $470 billion a year. About half of that is probably given by wealthy individuals, the other half by citizens around the world, all the others who count as much as everyone, as Jeff's pointing out. So what does this mean for us? Well, it means two things. One, we must use these resources extremely wisely. They are significant, but they're not going to get us to resolve everything. And secondly, we need to also be aware that philanthropy has to do, and citizenship has to do with passion. It's entirely legitimate for everyone to give the causes they care about, that we all care about. This means that it is sometimes difficult to focus philanthropic resources on one specific objective. But as Scott was pointing out, that is also the power of philanthropy. Innovating in a niche, trying new things, building models, and then involving others to bring them to scale. Next slide, please. So how do we do that? You know, I taught economics for some time, and if one is very basic about it, there are really two things that we need to get right. One is, and all of us, many of us have of course been confronted with production possibility frontiers. The point is we can either put in more resources, or we can use the resources more productively, or hopefully we can find a combination of both. Now, of course, what Jet is doing with the One Foundation is exactly that, building a conduit for giving, whereby everyone in China can get involved, and I have no doubt, Jet, that you will reach your ambition of exceeding 10 billion yuan within a few years, which in fact would put One Foundation in the Premier League globally. But secondly, it is also about identifying especially catalytic and powerful projects. And as our previous speakers pointed out, this also depends on the right enabling framework, on greater accountability, transparency about what projects, what charities are actually achieving on the ground. And it's fantastic to see the ambition level, the energy in this room and on this panel. Again, I have no doubt that as China has progressed very rapidly in many areas, it will also adopt the enabling frameworks in this area very quickly, probably more quickly than we were expecting. Ladies and gentlemen, it is all about leverage. Philanthropic resources are significant, but they're scarce, given the global challenges we're facing, such as climate change, such as sanitation, such as poverty. We need to look for leverage. Now, leverage has the component of course, money, innovation, being productive, but also cooperation. Next slide, please. This panel is about philanthropy through global cooperation, and I couldn't resist to briefly take you through a case in a few seconds. We've heard from Scott the importance of food and food prices to manage social harmony, to make sure everyone can be a productive citizen in society. While imagine if an initial grant of $450,000 could touch half the world's population and really change the game on one specific subject. This is, of course, what the International Rice Research Institute did, established by the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations in 1916. We have representatives of this institution in the room. This is the power of philanthropy. Putting some seed money at disposition, being very focused. Of course, rice yields are important. Raising them can make a big contribution. And then establishing a framework, an institution, funding it, hiring the best people, putting proper governance in place, involving different actors, government, civil society, scientists, and the foundations funded it to really move the needle. Now again, I know we're pressed for time, so I can't go into this in great detail, but I find it a quite marvelous accomplishment. Rice production has increased 170% from 1961, 99 million tons to 440 million tons in 2000. Now, of course, the preoccupying news is the global population has also grown, so we can't just applaud and stand still. No, we need to take this further. But there are institutions, there are examples like this around Asia that are very powerful, that can serve as a source of inspiration. And I have no doubt that the innovative approach that the One Foundation is taking, that will learn about projects and will create such projects, that will similarly move the needles on the challenges that China is confronting and the region is confronting. Next slide, please.